This is the reading selection 811 through 822, talking about the 1950s, the Cold War into this chapter will go and move us into the 1960s. So it starts out with a decade of affluence with the election of Eisenhower. He calls his politics dynamic conservatism, and he accepts much of the New Deal but sees no need to add more reform. It's there, just kind of like what Truman wanted to add to it, and Eisenhower says, "Nah, I don't think so. I think in my presidency we're going to be good." American workers in the 50s had more disposable income than ever before, and things are really good. Henceforth, the reason why it's called the decade of affluence. Rising productivity led to good labor relations between unions and corporations. Businesses are making money. Workers are happy. Everything's good. Minorities with jobs also experienced economic advances in the 50s, but the migration of African Americans and Latinos outpaced the number of jobs. We've talked about this before. They are moving into areas more quickly than jobs are becoming available. They will become available, but it takes more time. In 1954, Congress transformed the public housing program into an urban renewal that temporarily revitalized the older Northeast and Midwest cities facing competition from the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt would be Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and California. Also, the South is getting more and more people to move back to the South. And when Eisenhower was in the military, in the very beginning of his career, he had to drive cross country, and it took him an extremely long period of time. And he always said that if he had a chance to kind of change our highway system, he would. And he comes up with the Federal Highway Act of 1956 that creates a national system of interstate highways. And so we are slowly working to that claim. And we have Interstate 30, and we see how it transformed Texarkana. Interstates helped the automobile, steel, construction industry. Of course, better roads. People are going to buy more automobiles. You got to build those roads, so you need the steel, you need the concrete construction. However, the one bad thing is that sometimes minority poor neighborhoods were bulldozed for interstate construction. But this does accelerate suburbanization, because now you can drive on the interstate and it only takes a few minutes from outlying areas to get to where you need to go in town. And as you can see here, housing built really close together. But these are the suburbs. These are the homes that people live in, because why would you want to live in a downtown area like we've spoke about? In most cases, you would much rather live in the suburbs with other people like you. Prosperity transformed the spending habits of people. Now, here, the 30s taught Americans how to avoid debt because of the Great Depression. But the 50s taught them to buy on credit, and we still are. We don't have the ability to, as a whole, America as a whole, to not buy things on credit. Now, remember, there's good credit and bad credit. Buying a home, good thing. Buying a car, if you have the money for it, you might as well pay for it. Putting things on a credit card and not having the money to pay it off at the end of the month, not good credit. New forms of marketing facilitated credit-based consumerism, including the rise of the shopping malls, one-stop place to get everything that you need. So an advertisement is big business. They want you to buy things. Interstate highways influence in retail businesses in small towns to relocate to the edge of town by the interstate interchanges. We've seen this. They move from people in Texarkana move from downtown into closer to the interstate. All the businesses moving closer to the interstate. If you have a business and you want to make money, you move towards the interstate. Very few businesses succeed in the downtown area. There are some that have succeeded. There are some stories of success there, but people aren't traveling downtown in towns anymore. They're traveling across the interstate. You want your business to be right on that interstate, so as people are driving by, oh, I want to go there, they stop and eat, or stop and stay in the hotel, or stop and shop in your store. Las Vegas and Disneyland offer new high-intensity consumption and entertainment venues. If you guys have gone to either one of these places, there is never a dull moment. There's never not a time that something isn't going on. It's just always something going on. Disney Land built first, and then eventually Walt Disney said, man, it's really expensive for people to, or it takes a long time to travel all the way across the country. Let's build one in Florida, and then he'll eventually build one in Florida. In the 1950s, family life departed from historical patterns. Children finished high school, and young adults married right after graduating high school. Okay. Television fit the family-centered cities. Situational comedies show everything's good. It does not reflect real life, though. You don't get in a fight with your parents, and then 30 minutes later, cue the sappy music, and the problem is solved. That just doesn't happen. But that's the way it worked in television. It's not real life. Women tended to stay home in larger numbers during the 50s. Their share of new college degrees and professional jobs fell. However, some families, their prosperity depended on women working. So the number of employed women reaches new highs. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't stay home for a small period of time or stay at home and work. My grandmother ironed shirts and pants for people, neighbors, people from church, charged 10 cents for a pair of pants, or 10 cents for a shirt and 5 cents for a pair of pants. And she'd sit there and iron all day long. And she could do that with young children at home without a problem. Here you can see here, in the 40s, the adaptation of the television, and by 1950, majority of Americans, by the end of 1950, majority of Americans have a television in their home. Talk about this in class. All right, so this is ran on the Saturday Evening Post in 59. Does it help to swap visits with the Russians? So it's a woman at work, working, yet she's dreaming of being at home with her husband, being that stay-at-home mom. So there is some confliction here for women. The word teenager becomes a marketable commodity, a major consumer market, clothes, food, movies, automobiles, because remember, majority of the time, teenagers are getting money from who? Their parents. And if they run out, their parents are going to give them more, just to keep them happy. Shut them up. Advertisers promoted a distinct youth culture. Teenagers shared rock and roll music that adapted black urban rhythm and blues to a mass market. You have Elvis Presley. You have a whole bunch of different artists that come about in the 50s, and 50s music starts the rock scene up there. Portable phonographs and 45 RPM records along with transistor radios help rock split off from popular music. Remember, this is a teacher tube, an oldie but a goodie from a long time ago that I put on this PowerPoint that shows you the difference, how music changes from the early 50s to the later 50s. And there's old Elvis. James Dean, Rebel Without a Cause, teenager style of marketing. Churchgoing was advocated as an antidote for communism. Regular church attendance rose 48% of the population church attendance rose from 48% to 63% in the 20-year period, because they said, that's the difference between us and the communists is, they don't believe in God, we do. We start adding "in God we trust" to our currency. Under God is added to the Pledge of Allegiance. And things that were not there before are there now. And it's to reflect that we are a God-fearing nation and they aren't. Radio and television added a new dimension to religion. Evangelical and fundamentalist churches contributed to a religious revival. You didn't have to get out of your PJs on a Sunday, and you could listen to your church service. Some church services broadcast live on TV, some broadcast live over the internet, some are a couple days later in today's society. They have them up there. But people can now, not feel good or whatever and still be able to go to church. African American churches were community institutions, and religious organizations closely go hand in hand. And church becomes a bigger thing in the 1960s. When things are scary, people go to the thing that makes them feel better, and that's church. Writers and intellectuals explored American prosperity by studying the corporation and the abundance of natural resources. America's message to the world was production and consume. We're going to produce the most, we're going to consume the most. The prosperity of the 50s was not universal. An estimated 40 to 50 million Americans lived in urban areas and rural backwaters without decent housing. Critics rejected the alienated effects of consumerism and suburbanization, especially on well-educated women. We have a group of individuals known as the Beats who reject material culture. They'll turn into the Beatniks, and the Beatniks will then turn into the hippies later on in the 60s, but it's all based off the Beats. And that's the lecture video for 8:11 through 8:22.